One. Okay, cool. So this is how the management pack looks like. If you have not played with it, it's been there for a while. So what you can basically do, it's a main dashboard. You can have multiple NSX environments that you can monitor within the same management pack. So I have one, so it's just one listed here, but I can select a particular one, and then it will refresh the other widgets in the management pack. The next one I'm going to show here is the key NSX component. So if I mouse over, look, it gives me the component health. So like I have NSX manager, 3 controllers, edges or distributed logical router that can basically show up here. I can mouse over and see the badges for those particular components here, right? I can see some of these things here. I have 2 distributed logical routers and 1 edge in my deployment. We have the open alerts window where kind of Venki touched upon some of the alerts that we kind of correlate between compute and network and try to bring some meaningful alert up to the user. So those are shown here. It also includes some compliance or best practices alert. Like for example, the distributed firewall is allowing all traffic by default, which is not a good idea from a security perspective, right? So it's kind of telling you, hey, it's not a health issue, it's a risk issue. So it's showing me it's a risk with the triangle. Then there are other certain things like backups are not secure. It's again a compliance or a risk issue. You should be using secure FTP versus FTP for sending backup data, right? So those are things. We also have the transport layer out here, which kind of shows you, transport layer is basically your hypervisors running NSX, right? So you want to make sure that your transport layer is healthy. So your hosts are running good, CPU, memory utilization are good, no high network utilization on the host. So those kind of information gets shown as a heat map. So if you see some red or orange or yellow, you can mouse over or double click on that to see what issue you're seeing in the network. Now down here you see the physical network adapter, and this is I think the tech preview part of it, right? This is not something which is shipping today, but it's what we are working on. So what we are doing is monitoring the physical fabric, in terms of leaf and spine switches. So the top ones are the leaf switches. I have 4 of them in my environment. For some reason they're red. We can always click on why they are red. I have a bunch of Nexus 9300s from Cisco and Arista switches. So it's you can basically talk to any vendor switches there. And then at the bottom you have the object list. So basically everything that NSX management pack discovers from NSX through the API, it creates an equivalent object for that, and it has properties and metrics that it's going to collect for those objects. So those are kind of listed there. It also gives you data around the top logical network switches, in my environment. So we are basically looking across all the hypervisors that are there in the domain and looking at the VDS port statistics and then collecting, aggregating them, and giving you a representation of the logical switch metrics, right? How much utilization is there and what are the top 5. And similarly, we are giving you top VMs, which VMs are sending most of the traffic in the environment. So that's kind of the overview of how the things look like. The object widget is very good. Actually, I like it because I can do a search. If you have tons of objects, you can easily search them. So let's just search for a web object. And I have a web VM here. If I click on that, I can always do a cross launch into my next widget, which is a topology one. What it's going to do is it's going to basically auto-select that particular VM and then give me topology map in terms of how things are connected in the logical space and the physical space, right? So here I can see that it's still building this thing. Just move it just to make sure it's clear. So and I can always zoom in with my mouse so that we can have more details around this. Let me just also scroll it down a little bit. So I can see the VM. The VM has VM tools, so it's collecting a lot more data from the VM. It tells me which OS it's running, what's the IP address, how many NICs are there, what operating system is running, and where RAM and everything is shown there, right? The next one is the NIC that is there. So I need to know which NIC, what IP address is on the NIC. Then I can see which logical switch is connected to. So it's connected to a web zone logical switch, which is a VXLAN. So it tells me the VXLAN ID here. It tells me what control plane mode it is. It's a unicast control plane mode, and then what's the subnet corresponding to that particular logical switch. Next, it's connected to a DLR. So I can basically, a DLR is basically a distributed logical router. It's a distributed router across running within the kernel of the hypervisor. But it is represented in terms of how it's connected to. So I can see the details around what that distributed logical router is configured for. I can see OSPF is configured there. BGP is not configured in my environment for that particular router. And then if it has any active standby, it will tell me the active VM and standby VM for that particular router. And then there are other widgets here down here. Based on what you select on the top, you will basically see the metrics for those particular objects. Like for example, if since I've selected the web VM, I see the metrics for the web VM. If I do select like a edge, like let's say I have an edge here, it will tell me certain things. In some cases, like edge VM CPU utilization. So it's kind of dynamic, refreshes the object or the data based on the object that you select there, right? Further down, things I won't go into the details about how it looks like, but I think you get the idea. It gives you the way things are connected in the logical world, as well as the physical. Let me just click on the web VM again.
So one other thing which I want to add is that if you think about a very big environment where you are trying to troubleshoot a particular VM issue, and you want to say, okay, how that VM is connected in the logical network. You can select that VM, you know how the connectivity is there, and at the same time we tell you which hypervisor it is running on. It is very important to know that, because if you have thousands of VMs, you don't know which hypervisor it is running on, how it is connected to the top of the rack switch. If it's a network issue, you want to know that. The mapping of virtual to physical is very critical. At the same time, knowing how things are connected in the logical world is helpful, and that's what we are providing with this tool.
Yeah. And in the physical topology, since we talk to the physical infrastructure using SNMP, we know how or where they're connected to. So I can basically, when I see that the VM is running on the hypervisor, which is .73 in my case, and that hypervisor is dual home to the top of the rack switch, which is the Nexus 9396, and it connects to an Arista 7050. So I can basically know how things are wired down in the physical layer as well. Right? So if I have to troubleshoot things, I can basically do that. The next one is the object-to-object path, and this is, I'll basically go on this in the next demo when we do some kind of troubleshooting. So the other one I'm going to show is the application monitoring. So, as Venki said, we are collecting statistical data from various management packs through vCenter, the VM stats and the things. So if you have a problem in a physical network, you want to know what's the impact on my application, because you may have multiple links in the network and that may not really be causing any impact to the application, right? Because you have, like, say, four-way CMP configured. One link goes away, you still have 3 links that can take your traffic. So technically there is no impact, right? So those are things that you want to basically make some analysis on. But all 4 links go away, then you know that the application is truly impacted at that point, right? So those are things. So what we have done is created a scenario where we introduced some errors in the physical switches, and then that kind of gives me an indication that, hey, there's an error in the physical switch and that's causing an potential impact to the application. So I can see that I have 3 applications here. One of them is amber and other 2 are green. So I'm going to kind of investigate what is happening here. When I click on that, it gives me a nice view of the application topology in the application world, not a network topology, but just an application topology here. What I'm seeing here is I have multi-tier app, and in the multi-tier app, I have 3 tiers, which are the web, app, and DB. And and in this case, I see that the web tier has a amber, and that's impacting the health of the application. And within the web tier, I see that if I mouse over, I can see that these 3 VMs are in the web tier, and 2 of them are green, 1 is amber. So let me just investigate what's happening there. So when I basically click on it, it again gives me the alerts for that VM saying, hey, VM performance impact. Check the leaf switch for errors on the underlay, right? So it's a physical switch has got errors that may be impacting the VM's health, and the VM's health impacts the tier's health, the tier's health impacts the entire application's health, right? That's how it is kind of showing you here. And then we saw this topology view earlier in the previous tab, so we are just taking that and providing you details around how things are connected, right? So in my case, I am seeing that the logical topology, except for the VM, everything else look green to me. So I don't think any problem with the configuration or the way things are working in the logical space. But I do see in the physical network there is some issue on the leaf switches. So I can always go, double click on that and then see, hey, what's happening here. It will take me to a different screen where I can see what's the health issue. It says, hey, leaf switch has high interface errors. And then basically you can, either if you are responsible for the network on the physical side, you can log in and fix the issue. If you're not, then you can always work with your network engineer who can basically go and fix it, right? But you have at least narrow it down to where the problem could be based on based on what you see from the management pack, as well as you have visibility around what's the impact on my application at that point, right?
So one of the things which is very critical for you to understand here is that if you imagine a application ticket coming to you as a performance issue. The guy on the level 1 support team might forward the tickets to the compute guy first. Compute guy says everything looks fine. He just reroutes the ticket to the network guy. Network guy says, okay, I don't see anything problem. From network point of view, everything looks good. Probably there is a switch which is a problem, but he doesn't know what is the relationship for the application and all. So there's a lot of ticket flowing around these compute storage network team. Now you have this drill down ability where you can drill down and pinpoint where the issue is. That's big, actually. So I hope you appreciate that.
Sure, yeah. So let me